Good morning and welcome to the DFS Army YouTube channel. I'm Razzle11 and you can find me on X at Razzle11Grinds. Go ahead and take a look at pitching for today, the 21st of August. It is Thursday. We do have a 6-game day slate and then a 3-game evening slate ahead of us. Only some slight weather in Tampa Bay, nothing too crazy. Winds blowing out in Tampa Bay. In New York, kind of an important spot, but it's cooler in Baltimore even, pretty cool in San Diego, warm in Colorado, winds blowing out in Minnesota, hot in Kansas City. So some interesting spots to take a look at. This is a first look at the pitching options on the slate, and I will be looking at DraftKings as that is where a majority of my action is. If you do play in FanDuel, I'd cut my pool in half or so. Pricing isn't quite as tight. You don't have to be as creative. It allows you to get stacks you want with an upper tier-ish pitcher. Now, with that said, I think on the slates today, you might not want to cut it all the way in half, but pretty close. Some questionable options or options that do have question marks added to them in these matchups. But let's just jump right in. The A's, Twins, Perkins, Urena. Perkins has been decent the last 2 times out, giving up some runs, but there's some strikeout upside. JT Ginn was pretty good early on against Minnesota last night. I don't remember what his final line looked like, but Perkins could be viable on this particular slate. I don't love it, but given that our options, as we look, on the surface are kind of weaker overall, I do think that brings Perkins into play. Jose Urena, not somebody I am interested in at all. Texas, Kansas City. Patrick Corbin, not somebody I'm going to use against Kansas City. They just don't strike out enough. He's made one start against them. Was not very strong. On the road, he's been pretty bad this season. And that's where he's at in this one. Did mention it is warm in the Midwest, so 88 degrees in Kansas City. Going to have that ballpark playing a little smaller than normal. With that said, I think Michael Lorenzen's in play. Looked decent in his first start back. Racked up pitch count, which kept him from getting into 5 and 6 innings. But I do think he's viable. I think the Texas lineup can struggle enough. And traditionally, he's been a reverse splits guy. I don't think that's been the case this year, though. I feel like I remember looking at it sometime over the last month and a half and realizing that he's kind of evened out. Yeah, I mean, he still leans more towards right-handed power, etc., but the splits aren't as extreme as in years past. With that said, though, I do expect Texas to be fairly left-hand heavy. So it does play into his splits enough that I think Lorenzen's somebody that I want exposure to. Milwaukee and Chicago. Probably should have looked at the wind here in Chicago. Blowing in from right. Pretty good spot then for the pitching. Especially somebody like Quinn Priester. Cubs lineup should have a number of lefties in it. That wind blowing in should help him out. I don't believe in Quinn Priester as a pitcher. I've talked about it a lot on this video throughout the year. But he is a one-time top prospect. He has shown massive upside. Absolutely dominated the Dodgers, 10 strikeouts. Dominated Colorado. So the ability is there. Can we trust him? Generally, I say no. I think he does work, in this slate, given the weather in Wrigley is much better for pitching. Shota has been pretty solid. 4 straight starts at 22 plus. 6 of the last 7. Sorry. Couple decent starts against Milwaukee, I assume. One pretty solid one. 8 strikeouts. Did allow 2 home runs. And another one, just 2 runs, but only 4 strikeouts. It's been solid. I think he's in play. I don't love it. He has been at his best when at home, even though he does allow a home run every 4.7 innings. So it's looking at nearly 2 per 9 which is a pretty high rate. But again, wind blowing in. Obviously, if Milwaukee's pretty right-hand heavy, the wind's not going to affect them as much. So I do give a slight lean to Quinn Priester, despite the Cubs being minus 135 favorites. Dodgers, Rockies. Chase Dollander, not going to get there. He's a guy that I've played a couple different times this year because he does have a big arm. There's a lot of upside to him. I just don't think I can get there. Now, the one positive for him is Ohtani should be getting a rest day. I think it was a pre-scheduled rest day today. So he should not be in the Dodger lineup. So that automatically is going to weaken it quite a bit. You could see somebody like Will Smith at the DH with rushing, catching, or vice versa. Or Freeman at DH and maybe rushing, or Will Smith plays first base. But the other side, Clayton Kershaw, coming off of a really strong start against San Diego. Really solid against Toronto before that. Really solid against Tampa Bay before that. The problem, 10 strikeouts in those 18 innings. Strikeout upside just is not there. Has not gone over 4 strikeouts since June 26th. Has just one start this season over 5 strikeouts. So, I'm not super excited. He did pitch in Coors nearly 2 months ago and had one of his best performances of the season. His second best fantasy point performance of the season, actually. So, maybe I do have to consider him. I came into this initially thinking I was going to just pass on Kershaw. But I think based on this particular slate and how things look, I think Kershaw is in play. Mets, Nationals. Mackenzie Gore. Performances are all over the place. Over the last month he's got negative 13, 13-2, negative 17, 35, 19. He has massive upside. It's a matter of him just finding consistency and showing up. If he doesn't allow a home run, it's a good chance he dominates. But K upside's always there. I've said it multiple times before in previous videos, last year. I'm not sure if I mentioned it this year at all, but Mackenzie Gore reminds me so much of Blake Snell. So much talent, so much K upside, but then there are games where it just gets away from him, disappears. 6 walks, 4 walks, 3, 4 walks, 2 home runs, 2 home runs, 2 home runs. Mets, super dangerous lineup. Aren't a huge strikeout team. But I do think that he offers us enough upside. They're 12th fewest in baseball, but they are closer to Colorado at 29 than they are to Toronto at the fewest strikeouts in baseball. So, I guess that closes the gap a little bit. Gore, one start against the Mets this season, looked pretty solid. If he could have picked up the win, 22.5 fantasy points, we'd probably take that, in 80% of our lineups today if we could guarantee ourselves 22.5 from Mackenzie Gore. The other side, Sean Manaea, 4+ runs allowed in 3 straight starts. 4 home runs allowed over those 3. Strikeouts have ticked up, which is a good sign. So you try to take some positives out of some things. Strikeouts are up. So the big issue, obviously, pitch count, staying in the mid-80s. Not completing 6 innings, that's a worry. But I do think there's upside in the matchup. So Manaea is somebody I am going to mix in. He's been better so far on the road from a fantasy point, or not fantasy point, but just from a numbers, ERA, runs allowed perspective, less walks, far less home runs, etc. I think Manaea is somebody we're going to sprinkle in. It feels gross, but I just feel like there's probably a pretty strong performance coming from him, just based on some of the recent performances. They haven't been good by any means, but strikeouts ticking back up really kind of is one of those triggers for me as a guy that digs into pitching. When K numbers start creeping back up, usually means they're feeling better. Release point a little more consistent, stronger, etc. So I think Manaea is definitely somebody we want to get exposure to. San Francisco, San Diego. Dylan Cease is somebody I am playing for sure. Numbers at home, far better than on the road. Where he's at today is at home. Still massive strikeout upside. 90 Ks in 67 and a third home innings. Wasn't the best against San Francisco. Strikeouts were there, though. I just allowed a few too many base runners, walks. It's always going to be an issue. Walks. 56 walks so far this season. Balloons his whip a little too much, but still, on this particular slate, he might have the highest ceiling. It's either he or Gore, really. It's not saying much, but we want the guys that have the highest ceiling in our builds. Justin Verlander, coming off of his best start as a Giant. I don't love the spot. Decent ballpark. He hasn't been very good on the road. High whip. Not the most exciting thing. K numbers, not good on the road. I don't think I'm going to play Verlander. I didn't play him in this spot, so I'm not really going to chase this 30. So I'm going to probably pass on him, continue the fade train, which is, a little frustrating because as a baseball fan, love guys, like Verlander pitching into their 40s and still being able to get it done. Switching over to the 3-game evening slate, there's Sonny Gray in Tampa Bay. I like Gray. I like his upside. Not the best spots. Giving up 9 home runs over his last 6 starts. Strikeouts have been decent, but he's been a lot more volatile, and he's just been better at home overall from a number standpoint. Fantasy point standpoint, he's been basically the same. But this ballpark, obviously not the best, but it is a 3-game slate, so we do have to kind of roll with what we got. So I do think Sonny Gray is a guy that we're going to use this evening. Other side, Giolito. I will sprinkle in some Giolito. He's been better away from Fenway so far. Home run issue is a bit of a worry for me. 15 home runs in 106 innings. It's not terrible, but it's not the greatest, especially going into Yankee Stadium with the wind blowing out. But given the slate, he obviously could be the highest scorer, and it wouldn't shock me. Jason Alexander, a little cooler in Baltimore. I think I'm going to use Alexander. His last start did come against Baltimore, but he was solid. Pretty quality start. Strikeout per inning. 6 strikeouts in 3 out of his last 4 starts. 2 runs or less in 4 straight. It's going to be somebody that we're going to mix in. I think he just makes sense. Not a huge upside guy, but still somebody on this slate that makes a lot of sense. Luis Hill. Looked better last time out. Each start really has gotten better for him. He just didn't flash the K upside, but St. Louis doesn't strike out all that much, so it's not a shock. Boston, super dangerous opponent, but there is a route for him to be in the highest scorer. So he's definitely going to be an option for me. I actually think I prefer him over Sonny Gray on this slate. Baltimore, Brandon Young, coming off of an elite start against the same Houston squad. I do worry about going back to him here and thinking the same thing, but Houston has been struggling offensively for the last week. I think Brandon Young is going to be in play. Really, I think all 6 pitchers are in play, which is frustrating. Now, if you want to fade somebody, maybe it's Joe Boyle. He's been struggling. Has a walk issue, can have a home run issue. St. Louis doesn't strike out all that much, so fading him would make sense on this particular slate. But there we have it. There's a first look at pitching. If you enjoy what I bring to you, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on, get the alert anytime we drop videos here at DFS Army. If you want to join us, get access to our coaches, tools, sheets, Discord, etc. I will put links in the description below. You can use promo code RAZ, that's R-A-Z, for 10% off monthly. And as always, there will be a link to our merch store. You can check out my hoodie, stickers, shirts, coffee cups, some of the other designs. I know that they've been working pretty hard on it, so check it out. Let me know in the comments what you ordered. And as always, best of luck, everybody.